The Colorado River Water Crisis, as presented by Amelia Pearson, Harukaze Ogura, Kellen Moore, and Leliani Dolphin. The objectives. The Colorado River crisis is an ongoing issue of a 26-year mega drought. Climate change has affected the water flow, with the river seeing a reduction in flow by 20%. Many reservoirs, like Lake Mead and Lake Powell, are at drastically low elevations. The water supply for over 40 million people and the agriculture is at risk. We compared 4 different stakeholders in the Colorado River water crisis to focus on. Each stakeholder section will focus on the key findings and solutions for improvements. The following are the 4 stakeholders focused on by each group member. Farmers discussed by Leliani Dolphin, tribal communities by Amelia Pearson, cities by Harukaze Ogura, and dam owners and operators by Kellen Moore.
So, what is the problem? Lake Mead, created by Hoover Dam, and Lake Powell, created by Glen Canyon Dam, are major reservoirs in the river that indicate storage conditions. They are both in a severe drought. Lake Powell is currently only 24% full compared to a 42% average, and Lake Mead is currently only 34% full compared to a 54% average, which are significant drops. These reservoirs are not replenishing as fast as they are being used up. Consumptive use, in addition to water loss such as precipitation, are the main contributing factors for this. Over-allocation in some areas and under-allocation in others leads to an unfair distribution of water. Cities like Las Vegas use water for unnecessary entertainment like fountains, while the Navajo people only need it to survive and don't get enough for daily use. Replenish rate is variable naturally based on factors such as rain, water temperature, and snowmelt. From the years 2000 to 2022, the Colorado River natural flows were some of the driest in the last 1,200 years. Water rights debates have been ongoing for many years regarding fair allocation. The law of the river was an attempt to create laws, treaties, and compacts that fairly allocate the water to different stakeholders, but not everyone can be satisfied. There are also environmental aspects of this problem. The first one is high salinity. Basalt-bearing shale increases the salt content so much that facilities have been built to desalt the water in the Colorado River because it has adverse effects on fish and agriculture. The dams also cause issues because high temperatures lead to endangered species. Warm water released from dams impacts fish by killing off native species while increasing the survival rate of invasive species like the smallmouth bass. Narrowing tributaries due to diversions impact native fish populations such as the pike minnow and chub. The Lake Powell Reservoir covered up Glen Canyon, which was highly controversial because of its unique color and rock formations.
Stakeholder overview. The stakeholders involved are the indigenous communities living along the river, such as the Navajo, the farmers that draw water from the river to irrigate their fields, cities such as Las Vegas that use the water for entertainment and business purposes, as well as to support the livelihoods of their growing population, and the dam owners and operators, the Bureau of Reclamation that is responsible for managing the dams.
The first stakeholder is the Navajo people. 30% of people on the Navajo reservation do not have access to safe tap water. Infrastructure to access safe tap water is difficult to obtain due to financial and legal constraints. 523 abandoned uranium mines remain on the Navajo reservation, making it dangerous to rely on groundwater. 30 million tons of uranium was mined between 1944 and 1986 for atomic weapons. Springs and wells contaminated with uranium, arsenic, lead, and cadmium were accessed by Navajo residents, leading to their exposure. The Safe Water Drinking Act does not regulate these sources, which means they are not tested for dangerous pollutants. The average Navajo household has 7 gallons of water for drinking and cleaning versus the national average of 88 gallons, which is a large disparity.
Another stakeholder is the agriculture of Colorado farmers. Less than half the normal amount of water flowed into Lake Powell from the upper basin states, Colorado, New Mexico, Utah, and Wyoming this summer. Farmers in the four-state region fallowed fields and changed their crop plans to adapt to a smaller water supply. The dry summer conditions coincided with high-stakes negotiations over how the water supply for 40 million people will be managed starting in August 2026. Decreases in snowpack and increasing temperatures are affecting farmers everywhere, but especially farmers and ranchers on the western slopes of Colorado. Many of these farms rely on water to maintain their livelihood, and with less snowpack annually, the water sources like Lake Powell that feed into the Colorado River are decreasing water flow at a drastic rate. In current times, farms are decreasing farmland to 75% idled acreage due to low snowpack. Deciding how to allocate water for over 40 million people is the first and most pressing issue.
A major stakeholder that is a city for the Colorado River is Las Vegas. It is a symbol of excess, but water conservation must be a way of life for a city in the desert. The primary source of water for the Las Vegas region is the Colorado River. Approximately 90% of the water comes from Lake Mead, which supports the population and economy in the city. Over the past 2 decades, southern Nevada's per capita water consumption has decreased 34% despite an increase of 800,000 new residents. Currently, residents, businesses, and visitors consume approximately 90 gallons per person per day. However, 25 years of drought in the American West continues to take its toll on water supply, resulting in cuts to Nevada's Colorado River allocation of 300,000 acre-feet annually. Nevada, as well as other Colorado River Basin states, are working to negotiate new cuts and guidelines before their expiration at the end of 2026. The city plays a crucial role in the conservation and management of water supply for its residents and businesses by supporting regional management efforts by the Southern Nevada Water Authority. The city has adopted water conservation and compliance with state laws in support of SNWA's policies, including prohibition of turf and non-functional turf replacement by 2027, fountains and water feature limits, spray irrigation prohibitions, evaporative cooling moratorium, swimming pool size limits, new golf course prohibition, and septic restrictions. Homes and apartments make up nearly 60% of the community's water use, and residents have the biggest opportunity to help protect and conserve Southern Nevada's resources. However, every sector of their community has been required to make sacrifices in response to drought conditions and federal water cuts. The Water Authority has developed and implemented one of the most comprehensive water conservation programs in the nation. Conservation efforts have helped the community reduce its per capita water use by 55% between 2002 and 2024, even as the population increased by approximately 829,000 residents during that time. Programs that have helped us achieve this accomplishment include Water Smart Landscape Rebate Program. 250 million square feet of grass have been removed, saving 203 billion gallons of water since 1999. The Water Efficient Technologies Program. Since 2001, participating businesses have saved more than 24 billion gallons of water through the program. Water Smart Homes. Nearly 17,000 homes were built via the program from 2005 to 2020, saving 14 billion gallons of water. Pool Cover Instant Rebate Coupon Program. More than 45,000 coupons were distributed before the program was retired in June 2020, saving an estimated 5.6 billion gallons of water.
The stakeholder to analyze is the Bureau of Reclamation. The Bureau of Reclamation is responsible for the guidelines that manage the Glen Canyon and Lake Mead dams. At the end of 2026, the guidelines and supplementary drought considerations that govern the release of water from U.S. Bureau of Reclamation dams will expire. Most notably, this affects Lake Mead and Lake Powell dams, the two largest reservoirs of the Colorado River Basin, which combine for over 80% of all storage along the river. The management of the Glen Canyon Dam at Lake Powell is of particular importance as it separates the upper basin and lower basin and is by far the largest reservoir in the upper basin. Historically, the majority of the water contribution originates in the upper basin states, while most of the consumption is done by lower basin states, causing friction between the parties. This friction has extended into the negotiations for the new guidelines as lower basin states wish to have guarantees that upper basin states will release water from their upstream dams. The problems. Years wasted, litigation likely. Despite having several years to negotiate new guidelines, the 7 states involved could not meet the February 14th, 2026 deadline to have a state-submitted plan recognized and implemented. With this failure, states forfeit their ability to determine their own future, and the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation will move forward with one of their own plans, which they have published and are accepting public comments on until March 2nd, 2026. Despite missing the deadline, multiple states have been building litigation funds to get guaranteed releases they want through court. This will further delay implementation of the operation guidelines in dire need of replacement, as the current releases have never been sustainable. To make progress, the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation has released multiple alternative guidelines. From the analyzed USBR plans, the red arrows mark which ones are already vulnerable to conditions observed in the past. These alternate proposals include contributions from outside parties, with only 2 of the alternates expected to keep water levels above critical levels in the first 5 years. The continuation of current strategies, no action, basic coordination, and both supply-driven lower basin models are predicted to cause critical water elevations in Lake Mead and Lake Powell. Solution. The number one solution is to reduce water use and consumption. Allocating less water to unnecessary things like recreation of pools, water parks, and golf courses, and aesthetic displays such as fountains, in addition to home and water use in the desert, is the number one way to solve this problem. However, of the plans proposed by the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation for operation of the dams, only 2 analyzed in the recent reports can prevent Lake Powell and Lake Mead from falling below critical levels. These are the Enhanced Coordination and Maximum Flexibility Guidelines. These take a dynamic approach to releases, considering critical levels and current storages in both lakes at the same time and releasing water appropriately. The maximum flexibility approach considers even more reservoirs in the upper basin, the total upper basin supply, and the recent hydrology of the region. At the moment, it is difficult to say which solution is best, but those 2 are expected to prevent the worst case scenario for the reservoirs by sacrificing releases downstream. But ideally, whichever plan is chosen is based on the environmental realities instead of legal battles. Beyond dam management, each user along the Colorado River needs to take a good look at the impact they are having on the planet and whether it is possible to achieve their own goals in a more efficient manner. Difficulties. Once a person has been given a resource, it is almost impossible to get them to accept less, which is why it has been so hard to convince stakeholders to accept sustainable allocations. It is difficult to defeat greed. Additionally, each of the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation's solutions face one major hurdle: litigation. Instead of negotiating, multiple states decided to spend money building a legal case to sue for their allocations. Assuming the litigation can be avoided, the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation still must try to collaborate with several stakeholders to implement the best operation guidelines. Ultimately, it is likely there is no best solution. Each plan has its trade-offs, and the changing climate could render even the most flexible plans obsolete. Additionally, the releases could end up being decided by a court with no regard at all for the environment, only what each state is legally entitled to. This would be the worst case scenario, as precedent would likely dictate using the historical models that contributed to these water shortages in the first place.
To conclude this presentation, the problem was that reservoirs are not replenishing as fast as they are being depleted. Various stakeholders' viewpoints were presented, including the Navajo, farmers, Las Vegas, and the Bureau of Reclamation. Solutions to reduce water consumption and government allocation were generated, and drawbacks to these solutions were explored.
Please refer to our bibliography for sources included in this slide deck.